Tom, welcome to the Healthpath podcast. It's been a while that we've been trying to get this in the diary with sort of members of the family being ill and all these sorts of things. So it's nice to finally connect.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to be on here. Honoured.
So I guess we can ultimately, Tom, dive straight in. So are you happy just to start wherever you think is best ultimately with your story?
Yeah, I'll try and go as chronological as possible, but you have to bear with me. My ADHD might make me bang around a bit back and forth. So
That's okay.
if I go off track, I'll bring me. You can bring me back if I lose my track. But essentially, yeah. So my journey started quite a while back, to be honest. Once you start to piece these things together with your gut health, you start to realize, could that have been linked to it as well? Could that have been linked to it as well? Like in your uh, history in terms of being 12, 13, and 14. So my initial problem was I was a professional rugby player, and I was doing well. Everything was going great. I was tipped to move on to the ranks, get to the top of the game where I was playing the top leagues. But then I started to all of a sudden, once I moved into a house, started to get joint pain, inflammation. I started to get injured. I never got injured before. And through a 10-year playing career, I only had two or three injuries. Then all of a sudden, in the last year of my retirement, when I was 27, I'm 33 now, I started to suffer lots of knee injuries. I started to get really bad back pain, joint pain. Knuckles were really sore all the time, just inflamed. My ankles, I started to just roll my ankles quite easy. And it's something that was odd to me because I kept myself fit, I kept myself moving well, and I never really, I was one of them. I'd do extras just to make sure that I was healthy and fit and ready to play. It was my life at the end of the day. And then all of a sudden, I had this hip impingement on both sides. And I had a few scans. I was only able to train on and off, but then I had a scan on both hips. The doctor said I had a acetabulum misshapen femoral head, essentially. Sorry about the car. Misshapen femoral head. So basically, what they said was it's quite routine. You just shave it down, and you're good to go, kind of thing. But in my mind, it's like my genetics must have, not everyone's got a normal shaped joint. Not everyone's got a normal shaped bone. Essentially, I lasted this long, and I was doing well. I never had any pain, so I was unsure about the operation going into it. But when you're 25, 26, and you're being told by your medical staff and your medical team and the professionals around you that, yeah, this is what you need to do, then I just said, okay, let's do it. Let's to get back fit and healthy. So I had the operation, but things just didn't really subside. I still started to get these back pains, these joint pains. My knee pain got even worse, and it was just a case of I tried to get back, but then ultimately I had to retire on the back of that. Now it was at that point that obviously kind of my world as I knew it kind of started to like crumble because I was just a rugby player, but I had an engineering degree as well from Manchester, so it wasn't like I had nothing, but I did kind of put my mind and body and everything into that career. Um, and then it was around the same time where like COVID started to hit. So then I was trapped in my house a lot more, started to feel my baby asthma started to come back. I was like, this is just really odd. And every time I was in the house, I felt down, depressed, anxious. I felt like I had no energy. I was just sleeping in the day, which is not like me. Obviously, professional sportsman, I had energy. I'm bounding out of bed. And it was just a case of, what is this? What is going on? So, and I started to have really bad stomach pains. Anything I ate, I was like either diarrhea or I was just bloating, and I tend to not be sick, but it's like the poison from the food is like stuck inside of me. And I tried every single diet, started to read every single diet book there was out there, from vegan to carnivore and everything in between, and started to get some relief when I started to use more a paleo kind of ketosis diet that went down that kind of pathway. But I just digested everything and just figured out I just can't eat. I got to a point where I was like, I can't even eat anything. I was I tried to, like I said, try to go vegan. I thought, right, even leafy greens can't hurt, broccoli can't hurt. Then I was getting IBS kind of symptoms, and it was just really, really frustrating. And then one day, I was walking in after. I just went for a walk, and then I had some food, and then literally I started to have such bad stomach cramps and pains, and it felt like it was almost like tingling all over. And then I felt like I was having chest pain. I was like, what's going on? I was like, so my wife at the time, I like collapsed onto the floor and was like struggling to breathe. And I was just like really, really baffled what was going on. I thought, like, because you got to remember, I'd retired for 6-7 months before this. And okay, obviously I wasn't training as much because I just had the operation, so I wasn't moving as much. So I started to put it down to that. Went to see a specialist after this, said your ECG checked out, your heart's fine, everything's fine. I can't see anything that's wrong with you. They said, the first, they just sent me away straight away. Basically said, you're depressed, you're anxious, take some pills, which is the the reductionist approach to most medicine, which is unfortunate. And I think it's due to the fact that they don't have much time, but that's another story for another day. But then they obviously got sent away but then symptoms got worse. My brain fog, I got to the point, all I can like compare it to is feeling like having dementia. My granddad's unfortunately suffering with dementia, late stage dementia at the minute, and like I felt like that. Like it was just like I couldn't remember what a fork was. I couldn't remember like names of places. It was getting really severe, and so I went back to the doctors, and the stomach pains were just getting worse and worse. I just started to not eat. Like I started to fast, and then I got relief from fasting. So I started to think that there might be something into fasting. So I read into fasting, and then started to implement that a little bit more. But when I got to the doctors the second time, had every single probe, had everything that possible, anal examination, the lot, and they came up with I have chronic gastritis, and that I may have gall disease. And because I had a family history of gall disease, they were pretty quick to say, right, okay, let's get you booked in to get your gall removed. And it was at that point that I just was like, no, you're not taking any, no one's cutting me open again. I'm not having something that the body is vital to remove excess fat and whatnot from your body. I'm just not having it taken out of me. So I was just like, no, that's where I draw a line. So I went home, and that's when I just like kind of started my journey of developing my company, True Athletic Fitness, which is kind of trying to find, basically, it was my journey of self-discovery of how do I get myself better, because I've spoken to 3 separate consultants who all either want to just put me on medication for life, or they want to take something out of my body. So I was like, I'm just going to try and have to find my own way. So it got to the point where I went, right, okay, I need to order some bloods, get some bloods done just to see what's going on, because I asked for bloods at the doctors, and they just said the blood panel that they did was just basically to see for acute, obviously life-threatening things. And I was like, it's something else other than life-threatening, but it's really harmful. I don't think I'm going to die tomorrow, but I feel like I'm deteriorating rapidly. A lot faster than like the people in my household at the time. Obviously, my wife was having some symptoms, and my son got baby asthma instantly. So I like kind of I ordered some bloods, and I won't tell you the company we use because they basically said all seems okay. But as I looked through it myself from obviously my standpoint, and from a point of view of an ex-professional athlete who kind of knows his own body a bit and knows like the levels of testosterone and all these things that I should have in order to perform. And I just wrote a few of these things down. So my eosinophils in my blood were at 0.8 times 10 to the 9 per liter, which is like really low. And then my basophils were, sorry, that might be yeah. So and then my basophils are 0.1, which is like borderline really, really low. But it's still on the results gave like a green yellow symbol. So it was like borderline okay. And I challenged the doctor at the time via email, and he just said, oh, no, it's all within a range. It's fine. I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then I said, well, what about my uric acid levels, which were 433? Absolutely massive. And he said, yeah, but it's borderline. It's still within the green. I was like, yeah, but it's on the red. So and I was having a lot of joint pain, and I was having this, what's appeared to me as an inflammatory response throughout my whole body. And then my testosterone level, my testosterone cortisol ratio was like non-existent. It was like 0.004, which is like terrible. It's like that your body's just not recovering at all. It's like you're constantly training. When I wasn't, I was sitting in the house. And then there's a few others, but my EGFR was super low. So my kidneys weren't working properly. My creatinine levels were off the scale. So like my kidneys my kidneys were suffering. I was having inflammatory response everywhere. My testosterone levels were all over for some reason. Like my whole body was just confused, and obviously all this coupled with my gut issues. And so then I started to pursue the basophils and eosinophils, and then I found out that it could be parasites, it could be a gut issue, it could be. So I just started to go down that road, and it was during this time that I was just like, I was actually listening to a lot of Healthpath podcasts, and I was listening to just any health podcast, to be honest. And I came a lot. I kept hearing more and more about mold and mold toxicity, and how that could actually, if you got the DLA, is it HLA-DR? Yes, HLA-DR gene, is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have that gene and you are sensitive, then it can cause a cascade of symptoms that can seem like you've got Lyme's disease, or an autoimmune disease. So I kind of like chased that up and followed it up, and then I did a urine test with, it was another company, but basically they said, yeah, you've got mold toxicity, because there was like spots of mold in the house, like only tiny. But then once I started to discover what was going on, and that means that it could be through the whole of the plasterboard, but what's showing is just a tiny speck. And obviously there was a speck in my bedroom, there was a speck in the downstairs kitchen, and there was a speck in my son's room as well. So damp is throughout the house. So I just started to pursue and follow that up, and then it just started to be like a light bulb when I was like, I've definitely got mold toxicity. We took a holiday to Malta during the first, like, just when you could, around the lockdown periods, and we was away for 2 weeks, and my symptoms almost disappeared. Like I felt like I was absolutely fine. I wasn't like, my joints were still a bit sore, and like the things that are obviously been affected for long were still a bit sore, and I was struggling to like eat, anything I wanted. But the feeling of like just I can't explain it. It's like, it feels like the darkness, the depression, the anxiety was just gone. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I need to be away, I need to escape. And so I pursued it, and then ended up finding out that I had mold toxicity, but then I didn't know what to really do with that. So then that's when I ordered the Healthpath, the gut, the full spectrum gut analysis, and that came back that I had gut dysbiosis. I did have a parasite as well. I had what else did I have? Gut dysbiosis, and also leaky gut. So obviously a combination, just a multitude of these things, but down to the fact that mold toxicity has caused me to have all these ailments, because the mycotoxins have stripped my gut of anything inside, because it's it's not antibacterial, is it? It's a antibiotic kind of. It's an antibiotic, so it's stripped my whole body, stripped my whole gut. So therefore, my defenses are absolutely at zero. I've also got leaky gut, so any nutrients that are coming in through my body in terms of food are just passing through into my joints and inflaming my whole body. So I thought, I never got tested and confirmed for chronic inflammatory response syndrome, but that is what it felt like. It felt like I had chronic inflammatory response syndrome once I started to read up and find out what was going on. That is what all I could put my finger on. And then once I got the results and got the protocols and I went on a ketosis kind of diet for a bit, and then I had a lot of oregano oils, some zeolite to soak up some of the the toxins. I just chucked the kitchen sink in it, but eventually it took about 6 to 8 months. We moved house. Took about 6 to 8 months after moving house, and then I got myself back on my feet. But my point is that how many of my family and friends are in these same situations. I just now you have my own kind of practice and try and help other people. It's like every single person who says, "Oh, I've got bloating or gut or this, that, the other," they send me a picture. I just say, "Have you got black mold? Just check." They sent me a picture of the bathroom. It's absolutely covered. I feel like it's completely epidemic. I was just at the tip the other day, and a woman next to me, a whole car was covered in plasterboard of black mold. I'm like, it's like everywhere, and I don't understand. Like, it might not be. I've got the HLA-DR gene, and I am sensitive to it. So I have really. I'm like a canary in the cave. So I'm literally like, I go into a place and I'm like, like, yeah, you can hear I've got a bit of a blocked nose today because I had to throw away some stuff that was from the loft from the old house because it was still. I just was in the loft and I said I need to get out of the house. And so I chucked it out yesterday and it's given me nasal congestion again. And I just literally went from here 5 minutes down the road to throw it out, but then was next to a woman who's throwing out stacks of the stuff. So, but yeah, I'm like that. My son's like that, but I don't think my wife's like that. However, she did end up having cervical cancer around the same time and with no history of cervical cancer in the family or anything. So it was like, it was only little and it was only a small tumor. It was removed. Everything was fine. But all these things and coincidences, I just feel like they don't. It's not a coincidence. I feel like it's really harmful to people, especially people who are hypersensitive to it. But even if you're not hypersensitive to it, it can, like, I think it causes like an epidemic of low mood and low libido, like I just feel like there's something not quite right and there's not enough studies on it, because at the end of the day, if people start doing studies on it, you're gonna have to start ripping down housing. You're gonna have to start pulling down drywall of people's houses and rebuild, because if there was a case quite recently of the girl in Manchester, I think it was, who she died in 2002, but only recently got accepted. The autopsy was accepted that she died of complications as a result of mold toxicity. Oh, so I mean, if she won't be the only one, but
there's a lot in the news at the moment around this, obviously, I think, and it's getting to the forefront, and I think more and more people are becoming aware that we have to be mindful of this. So thinking around the humidity in our homes, for example, and thinking about ventilation and circulation can be really important. But you have, I think, just to go back to what you've shared, Tom, there's a few things there that are worth just reiterating or highlighting. One, that you might be able to only see a tiny amount of molds, but as you said, it's what's happening under the skirting board, it's what's happening behind the wallpaper, it's what's happening in the cavity between the ceiling and the floor of our different floors, etc. So it's very hard to know, ultimately, isn't it, what's going on from an actual building perspective. And obviously there are companies that we can have come in and do an evaluation of things like our air quality. But one of the other things that's probably worth highlighting is the fact that your entire family were to some degree influenced. And I think that's always something that as a practitioner we can be considering, what's the health of the other people in that building? Because there are studies that have been published looking at this. I think there's a study from Finland maybe that looked at a class of children, and I think the teacher, who were basically studying in a water damaged classroom, and then a family that all moved into a property. I think 3 generations of a family and their dog all got very unwell. So we know that this is a really important consideration when people are suffering with chronic symptoms and multiple body systems are being impacted. So you said the kidney, the liver, the guts, your cognition, your energy. For me, that's always then something where you start to think around, maybe they've been exposed to something that's creating this kind of chaos.
Yeah, it did feel like it had an autoimmune disease. It was like systemic. It was just, I couldn't put my finger on it. And obviously when I'm going to the GPs and doctors, they're like, it's just got to be you're suffering because you've had a tough couple of years. That was basically the answer. But I feel like part of what I want to do with obviously my company, because I do events of I like run across the country and try and do things that are like, try and raise money and awareness. But the next one I really want to do is to try and raise awareness for it, because like what's frustrating to me is if my mum and dad ever watch this, they live in a moldy house, and I try not to send my son there, because obviously it's like, and he comes back with a cough all the time, and the amount of times I say to them, because you've got that mold in the house, they won't have anything. They won't have it at all. And also they have a dog. We had 2. So that house that we lived in, it's always hard. We had an extension done, and the extension wasn't done correctly. And on the side of the extension, there's always been damp on. Like, it only started off small, but obviously, and obviously they've tried to treat it and whatnot, but it just there's no use. And my mum had she won't admit to this, but she had like really bad skin psoriasis. She's her hormone levels have been all over. She's had like gut issues for years. My dad's had recently been diagnosed. He had Epstein-Barr kind of symptoms, which is very indicative of having mold toxicity. He also has this thing called lichen phallus, where your gums are bleeding all the time, and you've got inflammation of the microbiome in the mouth, which again could potentially be because a result of that being exposed to it. And also, when I was younger, we had 2 dogs who unfortunately died of gut issues in the house, and the back legs stopped motor function, completely stopped working, both of them. And so I'm now putting all these pieces together and thinking, could this all be related? Because my sister still lives with my dad, and she's had a newborn baby, and I was like trying to say, just try and get out of the house as soon as you can. Luckily, she's just got a house, so she's trying to get out. But they have a dog as well, and the dog's got kidney disease. It's almost like it's a shame, because it's just dying. I can see it's dying, but obviously it's in that house a lot of the time. So, and I just think like all these little things that people just think, well, the vet said he's got Sharpei syndrome, but basically that's just another way of saying they don't know what it is as well. It's just like the multiple, the liver, the kidney, everything's kind of failing all at once. So I'm just thinking, how many families, how many people are living okay that they feel like they can live normal, because you do feel okay-ish. You can feel okay-ish. I was terrible. I was just getting worse, but people can feel fine. Yeah. But then it's like, how many families, how many people are living and just thinking that their lives are just substandard, suboptimal? How many people are just going through life and not living life to the fullest because they've got this black cloud like I had over my head, thinking, oh, I'm done. Like I'm 30 and that's the end of the road. Is this what life is? You just have these dark thoughts all the time. Well, I did anyway. And I mean, if this is affecting me obviously this way, it must affect other people. And like the amount, especially in the UK, there was a stat that I saw. I think it was like 25% of housing or more in America is damp, and in the UK it's even higher. And then the people who have, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but the people who have the HDL-ADR gene turned on is around about 18 to 25%. So it's like 1 in 5 people could potentially be suffering. Like, even obviously there's going to be a spectrum of how they're going to react, but 1 in 5 people could potentially be suffering with lots of these problems and ailments that I have. We're just going to the doctor and saying, look, you've got autoimmune disease, you've got to take these pills. 2 people who lived on my street had Crohn's disease and IBS, and obviously that street that we lived on was I forgot to tell you that the mains pipe underneath would burst throughout the whole street.
Oh wow!
So it was leaking through the whole into the street, but only like a drip a day. But over 5 years or 4 years, however long we lived there, we had it ended up causing damp in the house, and the next 2 houses. When we spoke to them, they said, "Oh yeah, I've got Crohn's, I've got IBS." So I'm like now thinking, is this all connected? Is it all connected? It could be. I'm asking you as well. Is it all connected? I'm sure you treat a lot of people who have similar symptoms.
Yeah, it's I mean, certainly we see that chronic digestive issues, whether it's IBS or IBD, can be strongly associated with mold illness. And it goes both ways, obviously. You need a healthy microbiome to support the elimination of these toxins. But as you said earlier, mycotoxins have an antibacterial, antibiotic property ultimately. So they often contribute to dysbiosis and imbalances within the gut as well. And to go back to your stats around the gene, which are correct in regards to the range you gave from what I've read as well, but you don't even need the gene to be impacted. You're kind of, as you mentioned earlier, you're the canary in the coal mine potentially, but anyone can be impacted. And in the research, they say that some of the most important variables in regards to how affected you will be by exposure is the amount of exposure, which obviously makes sense, and also your state of health at the time of exposure. So the more able you are to eliminate the toxins that you're being exposed to, obviously will reduce your body burden, as they refer to it, of that environmental toxin. And your overall body burden is going to impact how those mycotoxins are affecting you. So let's just say someone had amalgam fillings fitted 30 years ago and that mercury's been leaking into their bloodstream, or they've been exposed to some other form of environmental toxin. Ultimately, that's all going to impact how someone reacts to then moving into a damp, moldy property. On top of that, you've got all the other stuff being produced apart from mycotoxins in a water damaged property. So you've got all sorts of volatile organic compounds and gases and bacteria that could all be impacting someone's health. So there's this kind of just toxic soup, as I've heard it sort of get described before, that we're being exposed to in those sorts of properties.
And you all have like a level at which it's going to overflow.
Exactly.
Like, and then once you get to that point, you just like anything you add. Like that's why I was thinking. Once I started to add, that's why I was allergic to any food. I had no food allergy. I started to get allergic to any foods because obviously foods carry toxins and bacteria with them, but your body can get rid of them. But once you get over that tipping point, there's nothing your body can do anymore. It's just a case of no, I'm allergic to everything. Like that's where it becomes. That's what I felt like anyway. I was just talking about how my protocol, like kind of how I got away from it, was red light therapy. And because I was taking stuff, because in my case, I had just had an operation. Well, not just, but a while before. But obviously, had to have antibiotics as well, like because there was an infection. So I've had a course of antibiotics with no pre or probiotics to go with that on the back of it. And I don't really know any doctors who prescribe pre and probiotics after antibiotics anyway, which I think people should start doing anyway, because it's going to damage your gut. So yeah, I'd come from that situation. And then so I ended up taking, they give me naproxen, codeine, all these things that are kind of causing even more damage to my gut. And then I decided that I needed to stop all that, and then ended up coming across red light therapy, which really started to reduce the inflammation in my joints. I had it on my gut like for about 20 minutes a day, and then I started to just started to feel better in myself. Started to feel like, oh, I can eat today. And then think it was subtle at first, but now I can't live without it. Like behind me now, I can't live without it. I have it every day. It's like if I don't have it, I feel like I've missed out. And the way it works is obviously it increases ATP production in the mitochondria, and ATP is obviously vital for absolutely everything. But I think there's a lot more research that's going into ATP in terms of neural connections, as well as some other. Obviously, they don't actually know what mechanism actually helps, but having more ATP available for your body to reduce inflammation, to repair the gut, to repair whatever needs repairing in your body is obviously how it's helped me anecdotally. But there is more and more studies coming out there that it's saying it is really, really beneficial. So that's where I started to implement that into my protocol. And then just obviously utilizing the clinic side of the Healthpath, I started to hire some nutritionists myself to help with looking at more people. I tend to try and help more people who are living suboptimally. That's how I like to see it. It's not like I'm not like trying to say I'm being a doctor, because I'm not. I've obviously got a nutritionist, a doctor who helps me and works with us. But what I try and do is like, because I was a sportsman who had to retire and who could have had 5 more years in him or 6 more years in him, because I had to retire because of a cascade of events that happened due to being ill, which is how I see it. I don't want any other people to feel like I feel bloated after training. I just want everyone to be able to feel, like at the peak as long as possible. And I think everyone should. It's not just athletes, but obviously because I've got a connection with rugby, I'm kind of working with athletes and some football and rugby clubs at the minute. But it's like, I think everyone should want to live not want to live suboptimally. They want to live an optimal life. They want to live long, full lives and just feel happy and have energy. And it's like, it's sad because you hear a lot of people like I going back to my mum and dad, they going, "Oh, I'm just getting old," and it's, to me, that's like you're 58, 9, however old you are. But then yeah, you can see it that way. But then there's people who are like 60, 70, 80s running marathons, and they've never had any of these issues. Granted, a lot of them do live in warmer climates, and they get a good exposure to the sun, and they've got a better diet and stuff like that. But you're not trapped in a box that could potentially damage your gut. And then your gut, then once I started to go down the rabbit hole of the gut and trying to understand obviously how the gut works, and it just dawned on me that it's like the gut is the first brain. The gut was the first brain, and this is the brain that happened once we started to digest food better and quicker and more efficiently and started to cook. as like most animals are through evolution. They were just a digestive tract at the end of the day, and then that what you're just trying to grow and trying to survive. Now this is we neglect this as the first brain. Well, I have this theory anyway. We kind of neglect it, and we kind of obviously think like subtleties of like gas, wind, like just feeling a little bit unwell, or falling asleep after food is a big one, or just like feeling unsure, just uncertain. These subtle signals that your gut is sending to your body and your brain all the time that we've completely become disassociated with, because obviously the modern lives that we live, and like with phones, and we just automatically ring the phone, go to the doctor, and not try and listen to what's going on and try and eliminate certain foods. And or even just get a gut test so you know what's going on, and get analysis, so then okay, so I shouldn't eat this, I should stick to this kind of a diet. Like it seems to me, and it should seem to everyone, and it's what I'm trying to like push to everyone, is that it's fundamental more than anything. It's because we've got so many toxins coming out at all time, especially in this modern day world. And and if we're not sticking to the diet that's going to be right for us, because I was reading something like only 30% of twins' microbiomes are shared. So they're identical twins. So like from person to person, we're going to be so varied.
Yeah, there's a big environmental component to it, absolutely. And I think going back to what you mentioned earlier, and just for any of our listeners who are maybe struggling either knowingly or unknowingly, and maybe they're starting to think that they want to get tested, for example. You mentioned obviously moving house. You mentioned things like oil of oregano. You've mentioned red light therapy that was really a foundational tool for you. Were there any other kind of things along your journey, that sort of 6, 7, 8 month period, that you found really helpful?
Yeah, 5-HTP. I think it's melanin, isn't it? Basically, 5-HTP, melanoma. Sorry, So 5-HTP did help. I found that of exercise, just increasing your body's metabolism, kind of getting into sauna, that really helped. Obviously, you're kind of getting the toxins out of your body, and so saunas, exercise regularly. I know they're all just simple things that are like people should kind of do anyway. But like when it's the thing is, when you're feeling absolutely dreadful, it's the hardest thing to do, is to get out and do a little bit of exercise. But getting the body moving and getting the liver function, getting your whole body's function higher and working faster really does make you feel better. And also it just makes your body just go, okay, there's more important things to do than just to make you feel like crap. I know that you've got other things to do because you're a hunter-gatherer. You've got to get out, you've got to find food. So when you actually start doing stuff, getting out in the sunlight, using red light therapy, getting like cold showers, all these kind of things that started to build up, and only kind of 1% things, but once you start to stack them all together, you start to feel like, right, okay, I can get through this. But in terms of supplementation, I'm gonna forget, Tudka really helped. Okay. Tudka really helped. And what else did we have? And there was obviously the supplement list that I got sent through Healthpath, which was again, it was just like a pre and probiotic. I can't remember for the life. I think it was in vivo. They were really good. I had 3 or 4 in vivo supplements that I used for like almost 6 months, and alongside all my other things that I was incorporating as well, like zeolite and activated charcoal, and I've got a few others in there, spirulina as well, just to absorb as many mycotoxins as possible. And also I installed a faucet without any a triple filtered faucet, so there was no contaminants in the water, and just basically trying to stay away from any toxins I could, eating organic, cooking my own food, not cooking in vegetable oils, only cooking in coconut oil or ghee, and just threw away the Teflon pans. I went to the nth degree basically, but just trying to eliminate any toxins, like trying to get that barometer down basically of what my toxins overload.
And that's such a that's almost a textbook answer. We haven't rehearsed this beforehand.
No.
But what you've done there is you've taken that kind of holistic and really broad approach, whereas you say you've just been lightening your load even down to your kind of kitchenware ultimately. And something that I sort of say to clients, we've said on webinars before, which is you sweat, pee and poo these mycotoxins out. So making sure those 3 elimination pathways are working well is really important. But one thing that feels true, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I wonder whether your sporting background and the mindset that you would have had to get to where you were within your sports had a really positive impact on how you managed this whole kind of situation. Do you think there's truth to that?
100%. Like everyone says, I'm the most stubborn person ever. There's no way. When the doctor said to me, "You're getting your gall removed," that was it for me. I just thought, there's got to be another way. Because obviously doing an engineering degree and then understanding kind of how papers are done and how people, and just understanding how professionals kind of work. And I know that they don't have time, and like they're not necessarily being checked all the time. And I knew I could see at the time, it was during COVID, so I just could see the guy was just stressed out. So I just thought, right, I'm not going to listen to you. You've done your job, but I'm going to try and find a different way. And but the mindset they have, I incorporate it into my training and coaching, because like alongside all the stuff that I do, I try and like integrate it into, I speak to obviously doctors, they have a protocol, but I also integrate my S&C coaching and my holistic performance kind of lifestyle coaching into that, and try and give people a plan outwards to say, right, okay, it's not just, you can't just take some supplements and expect it to work. What you've got to do is take supplements and then train, coach. I take people away on retreats. I take for all ages and all. I take my granddad away and had dementia, and he like, you should have seen the difference was amazing. It was like from getting there on day 1 to day 3, he's walking up and down stairs, saying your name. That's just literally through moving, red light therapy, cold water, like exposing, just getting his toes in the lake in front of us. And obviously he couldn't I can't explain. He couldn't even hardly walk, day 1, day 3, he's walking up and down stairs. Ultimately, I'd love to help him do that, but like you just can't all the time, can you? But then he declined after that. But like it, for all walks of life, basically all ages, it can help just getting out in nature and just living a little bit more holistically, and just like you taking care of you, the whole of you. That's why I do meditation as well. I'm avid meditate every morning. So it's like it's all facets of everything, I think. And yes, going back to what you said, I am very stubborn, and if I was to go and find a way, I was going to find a way. There's no way I was going to just give up. Not a chance.
Yeah. No, but again, I think that's such a great thing for everyone to hear, that that approach is so important no matter what's going on, no matter what the diagnosis or the underlying imbalances. Taking an approach which is all about cultivating health and resiliency is the foundation of it. And I think sometimes we can get stuck in our rut a little bit, whereby we're kind of focusing on the problem and we're trying to treat and fix something, but we aren't thinking about that broader approach of, well, how are we living our lives? And as you say there, that's everything from our mindset to our nutrition, to our movement, to spending time in nature and getting some sunshine. And the list kind of goes on and on ultimately. So I think that's such an important message to get across to everyone.
And I think to add to that, I think that there should be almost a affiliation between doctors and like kind of people that are similar to me, who are an intermediary, where I'm not trained, I'm not a doctor, so I can't obviously prescribe or give you this, but I can help you with a lifestyle that does help. And I think it should be like a little bit of that's your first port of call. I think it should be, right? Get yourself to a datum point of health. Find out what that datum point is. Make sure that you're eating right. Make sure that you're doing everything that you should be to give you a good gut microbiome, to give you a chance the gut to recover, because most people's guts will probably be damaged by the age of 40 anyway. Just give yourself. I recommend when I coach people, I recommend doing a 24 to a 48-hour fast before they even start to come to see me, because I think let's just eliminate everything that you've had for the last 2 days, and let's just start getting using the your body's process of what's the word called where it reworks its where you anyway your cells break down. Yes, your cells break down and rework. So you get to that point where you start off, where your cells break down, you start to rebuild them new cells, get rid of the damaged cells, and then we can start from there. At least then that you're not coming in bloated, feeling weird, but obviously I'm not going to go and say run a marathon on that day. But what I would say is, let's just start off there. Let's see if some of your symptoms go away by not eating anything. right? So then I can eliminate that. It might obviously food. It might not be food. It might be something else, environmental, or it might be something else. It might be something that actually is systemic. That then after I've worked with them for a few weeks or so, then I'd say, okay, you know what? I've reached my limit of my expertise. I think you should go and see a doctor, kind of thing. But I think that should be the first port of call, really, because doctors are swamped with people who are just ringing up because they've got, ailment, just any ailment, like that's not gonna kill you, or that could be just down to the fact that let's get your gut right first. Let's just work on that. Let's get that right. Let's have a that system in place there that protects your whole body. Because if you're firing off cytokines up left, right, and center, pro-inflammatory cytokines across your whole body, you're gonna have an inflammatory response or an autoimmune response somewhere. And if you can just cure that, or not cure it, but just like make it a little bit better than it already was, then you could probably, most of your symptoms, well, no, I can't say that, but a lot of the symptoms will probably go away.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think it's really testament to taking that full lifestyle approach to healing ultimately, because it has to take a holistic approach ultimately. Is there anything else along your journey that you think is just worth mentioning that we haven't mentioned yet, Tom?
No, I think I've pretty much covered everything, apart from the fact that when I was younger, that's what I was saying. I had baby asthma myself, and that in that house, I think we did cover it in we spot. Yeah, I just think that like I've got, there's a huge stigma, I feel like, behind confronting people with potentially having like mold toxicity, especially when someone sent me an image of a black mold across the house, because they say obviously that it's such a difficult topic to kind of bring up and to talk about. And obviously I've spent so much time talking about it here, but I am pretty passionate about it because I've got lots of friends who are living in these flats and apartments, and they're just having a lot of like chronic kind of issues. And then when I've said to them, it could be this, they've kind of just got angry at me and like a bit annoyed, because they either own the house and they can't do anything about it, or the tenants are, I've like, my sister's asked her tenant to basically, not a tenant, a landlord to remove it, to replaster it, and to dehumidify it and to get airflow and stuff. And he just laughed at her, and I just think it's like she's suffering with similar situation to me, not quite as severe in terms of the mental issues, but she's still got gut dysbiosis. She's still got a ream of problems that she's having to deal with, low mood. And it's just not fair. And like that, and there's I can name about 10 people who I know directly who have this issue. So like my main plan is to try and do something where I can, I was planning on dragging because once my hip's better now. I had a hip operation about 10 weeks ago, a second one which removed a calcified piece of bone, because obviously it was still not fixed and it was just knocking on there. So I removed that 10 weeks ago. So once I'm fit, I was going to drag a stretcher for like something stupid, like 3 or 4 days across the country or whatever. But I wanted to raise money and awareness for mold toxicity, and also for just an awareness around the whole situation, just to show that it can be affecting more people than people than you think. And also it should be on the onus of the landlords to take ownership and say, okay, we'll get that down. Whereas like I said, my sister just got laughed at. He just went, what are you on about? You're just a princess. But in London, my sister said, when she lives in London, she said it's like every other house has that, or every other apartment is like that. So that just makes me think, how many people are going through similar or having some kind of, I know I'm stuck in this mindset of, okay, it was me, this is what's happened to me. So I'm kind of like, what's the word? Bias, kind of almost mold toxin bias. But I know that, but at the same time, yeah, if it affects everyone, and you said as well, it does affect everyone on some level, then like there has to be more awareness out there. Like, so yeah.
Exactly. And I think awareness is a really good word. And I think the other thing to consider is, by spreading that awareness and just helping people think about their chronological timeline, did they move into a property, and at that point or within that property, have they started to notice that their health is deteriorated? Because that's your first piece of a puzzle that will be like, okay, well then maybe there is something to this. I need to look into it further in some shape or form. And you can do mycotoxin testing like you did on yourself, which is like requires just a urine sample. You can get sort of Petri dishes from companies that will just collect some dust and evaluate to see what sort of mold spores might be in the air. And then you can get companies in to do like, quite comprehensive evaluations of the property if finances allow as well. So you've got different options at different price points that can help people understand whether this is relevant to them and their health journey as well.
So what would you suggest for people who are obviously on a little not able to afford even a test, for instance, but they can see that there's black mold in the house? That's the issue that I've got with a lot of people that I know. They're just like, well, there's nothing I can do about it, and so they kind of just push it to the side and say it's not happening to me because I can't see it, it's invisible. But like, viruses are invisible and they can cause tragedies across the world, like we know. So what would you say to those people?
Yeah, so when you can't do anything about leaving the property, then you're left with doing what you can to improve your tolerance to it ultimately. And there are things to start with, such as, can you get some form of dehumidifier? So if we think that for molds to grow, it requires a certain humidity, then that's step one. And you don't have to go and spend 200, 300 pounds on a dehumidifier. A lot of people don't have that sort of disposable income. You can, however, get these, and we've got two actually in our home now, and they do a really good job. They cost about £15. I can't actually remember the name, but I'll put it into the show notes so people can have a little look. You can get them from various online shops and actual stores as well. But it's basically a super cheap dehumidifier. So it's going to help get rid of some of the condensation in the bathroom or the kitchen and really help reduce that exposure. It's going to help reduce that body burden that someone might have. We've already mentioned that we sweat, pee, and poo these mycotoxins out. So you have to be having a regular bowel movement. 1 to 3 bowel movements a day is what is typical, we think. And obviously it should be well formed, sausage shape, etc., easy to pass. So gut health becomes really important. And there are a million things that obviously we can consider as ways to support gut health depending on what is going on there. So for some, they might respond well like you did, good to going more paleo and keto. Others might respond well to just being mindful of their FODMAP foods if they're struggling with things like bloating and bowel changes, etc. But really making sure that those elimination pathways are working well.
Yeah.
Which also means that the biliary system is really important. So that liver, gallbladder, bile is one of the ways that we eliminate some of the fat-loving mycotoxins. And we've found mycotoxins in the bile. So we know this is a pathway that we utilize to eliminate them. So that's why Tudka for you worked well. Milk thistle, anything, bitter greens, wild rocket, dandelion coffee, these kind of things that are helping either the flow or the production of bile are going to be helpful within that elimination process as well. Again, it's cold at the moment, but can you just open a couple of windows, even if just for 5 minutes in the morning, to get some ventilation going, to sort of get some better quality air, hopefully, into that room. Limit your exposure. If the mold is only in the spare bedroom, just don't go into the bedroom. So, use some very simple practical things ultimately as well. You can obviously think around, I would say, antioxidant supplementation might be helpful to some degree. Certainly not going crazy with it because you're still being exposed. So we're not going to throw the kitchen sink at it if we know that actually we can't turn the tap off, so to speak. But we do know, and there's huge amounts of animal research here, which is where a lot of the research is at the moment, that various antioxidants from lycopene, for example, in tomatoes, to curcumin, resveratrol, CoQ10, they do help repair some of the damage that might have accumulated from the mycotoxins as well. So there are quite a few things that can be considered. Dr. Jill Christer actually has a good resource that people can buy. I think it's about £20, but it's a webinar that she's put together around what to do if you are living in mold and you can't leave. And some of the things I've mentioned, but there are others as well that people can consider. I mean, I know it's extreme, but you will completely get this, Tom, because once you know that there's that connection there and you're struggling that much, I've had a client tent and camp in their own garden because they know that when they walk in that front door, their symptoms flare up.
Yeah.
So others, can you just spend a little bit of time outside the property, if that's either family members or friends, try and spend more time outside of the house at the weekends if you can. I appreciate these all sound sometimes a little bit extreme, but we just have to limit our exposure as much as we can, I think.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I did. You're talking about VOCs. I had like plush synthetic carpets throughout. I ripped them all out because once I read into that, I was like, well, that's going to that's going to make it worse. Rip them out and then put organic, fibers in there, which did like alleviate. And we did have two big dehumidifiers. And like you said, I started because the carpets were all upstairs and there was more mold at the top. I started to sleep downstairs on the couch, and that alleviated the asthmatic symptoms, because obviously it was, I don't know why, but it was just a lot. It was just every time I went upstairs I started to get a tight chest, so as soon as I slept downstairs with the windows open but back and front to have the convectional current kind of going through, that really did help. In Germany and in Scandinavian places, isn't it by law that they have to have the windows open for a certain amount of period in the day?
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure there is, and the Scandinavians, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So if they're doing it, then it's got to be, everyone should do it. Definitely. Just one more question. In terms of because I wanted to kind of ask you in terms of because I don't understand to the nth degree, obviously, how you do about the gut and how it fully works. What I'm doing at the minute with a few athletes and people who are kind of trying to get them even better and at a higher level, I'm utilizing the gut testing and gut analysis with some blood tests and these things. I just thought, with your opinion and obviously how it's been going, what we've been getting some really good positive results from athletes taking tests and then taking another test 6 months later and just following a protocol. What do you think that there is a positive correlation between gut health for throughout, all ages above, I'd say 20? Would improving your gut health actually increase the output of your performance in terms of athletic performance and longevity and health? Because obviously there's so many variables going on, but at the minute we're at the infancy of doing this, but we do seem to be getting a positive result. But is it because they just feel better? I don't know, or that they're having these tests done?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I guess it's always, I think, really hard to be able to give a definitive answer, in the sense that, as you say, there are so many variables at play. But if you start, I guess, thinking around the mechanisms that we're aware of in the research that connect the gut with other parts of the body, our physiology, and if we go with what you said around performance and longevity, I would say that if you have suboptimal gut health and you improve that, then it makes complete sense that you're going to see improvement in performance, and you're going to how should we put it? You're going to be having a positive impact on longevity, but it's, a small piece of a huge puzzle. And that's what I think is always really important to appreciate. But just to give one example from a performance perspective, and actually from a longevity perspective, probably as well, we know that certain metabolites produced by certain bacteria very much support mitochondrial function and capacity. And as you mentioned earlier, our mitochondria are often referred to as the powerhouse in the cell. They're where we create our energy. And obviously energy is pretty important when we're thinking about performance, but also longevity. So that's just one mechanism that kind of connects the two. And we are starting to see research get published around the gut microbiome, and athletics and sports and performance. So we are starting to see more and more that there are these mechanisms that explain that there is a connection between the two.
Well, I know that when I was playing, they used to throw FODMAP food down as, just a high fructose, just a protein kind of recovery bars. And I just responded terribly to them, and I felt sick, and I just constantly ate them because I needed the calories, constantly ate them. So I just feel like those kind of things that are still prevalent today in all sports, I feel like that was really damaging at the time. Whey proteins, all these things just just get calories in, but then ultimately it works for so long, and then you just start to like damage your gut. And also in club doctors and people, club doctors just, I'm not trying to, I don't want to say that club doctors are bad, but they do tend to give antibiotics quite often, because you kind of in this like circle that no one else is outside of you. You don't have a GP, you just have your club doctor. So you go, someone says, oh, I've got this, just take antibiotics. And I think that's just gonna just be a storm of making your gut even worse, and then causing knock-on effects to inflammation. And just like, I suppose if you can't digest your food properly and you're not feeling well and you've got leaky gut where you've got inflammation, you're not going to be performing the best day. You're not going to sleep well. So therefore it's going to be increased performance. So like, yeah, obviously we're kind of working with clubs now, and we're just at the infancy, but like, I'm under no doubt how much it's helped me. I'm like feeling better now than I've ever felt. And when I was at the back end of my career playing professional sport, I wish I was able to play now. Do you know what I mean? How I feel now today. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those protein bars, protein shakes, especially the calorie dense ones on the market, do have ingredients in them that we know are quite problematic, let's say, for the
polyalcohols.
Yeah, and or even things like the maltodextrin at the doses that are being taken, it can be really problematic. And then some of just the I can't actually remember the correct name for it, but some of the additives, let's just say, that might give the shake a little bit of its color, or the preservative within it, etc., can be problematic. And there are definitely better companies that have been coming out more recently that are kind of giving organic grass-fed whey protein, for example. But what was I going to say also? Oh yes, around, I guess, your response with things like the FODMAPs as well. And we also know that there are two other things to consider with athletes. One is the stress and anxiety of performing. There's a lot of pressure on professional athletes from that perspective. And also, certainly in endurance sports, we know that there is a lot of damage that happens to the gut, partly because of just the mechanical nature of, let's say, running a half marathon and training for marathons, but also from a circulatory perspective. If you're running for 2 hours, that's a lot of time that blood is being diverted away from the digestive tract and the gut lining. And we see in the research that there's an increased risk of things like intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut, when doing things like 10K runs, for example. That's going to heal on its own. So I'm not suggesting that someone's going to have chronic leaky gut by things like running a 10K. But if you've got someone doing that regularly, who, let's say, has to take a course of antibiotics, who has other little micro stressors of the gut and the microbiome, like we've been saying all along in this conversation, it's accumulating to a point where suddenly they hit their threshold and now they do have chronic gut symptoms or brain fog, etc.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in agreement. But yeah, it's just I could just talk obviously all day and ask you many more questions. So, but I mean, I don't want to hold you down for all day. So, yeah, I think we'll just leave it there. But I could just keep asking you questions, because this is what I do now. Just once you go down that rabbit hole of like the gut brain axis and how it's all connected. I was just reading a paper the other day, just quickly again, about how Alzheimer's obviously is now been proven. The amyloid plaques start in the gut. And some 10, 20, 30 years later, before symptoms present themselves in the brain. There was a study I was looking at as well, how photobiomodulation, red light therapy, actually can prevent the amyloid plaques from forming and help the microbiome. I'll send you that. I'll send you the study, actually. It's a really interesting. But that just goes to show how connected your two brains are. That if these symptoms, if that can be controlled and managed and looked after, you might even eliminate Alzheimer's and dementia from forming completely. That's all. These people who have predisposition for, obviously, genes saying that they're going to be more likely to have Alzheimer's, probably also have a family history of bad guts and bad diet. So yeah, I just think at this point I'm feeling like the gut is like Hippocrates says. It's literally the root of all disease and the root of all health. I feel like that's what it is.
Brilliant. I mean, I'd be really interested in seeing that paper. And the gut brain axis is definitely a very exciting area of research at the moment. So Tom, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I think this is going to be really well received and hopefully really helpful for a lot of people out there.
Absolute pleasure. And if anybody wants to find me and ask me any questions, I am more than happy to do that and tell them about my story and how I got out of the situation, because there's obviously more people who probably be in my situation as well, and similar situations. They may not want to go to a doctor, might just want to ask a few questions. Then, you know, I'm an open book, so just find me. And yeah.
Thanks, Tom. I'll put details into the show notes so people will be able to find you easily as well.
No worries.
And thank you once again.
All good. Have a great day. Take it easy, Alex.